team of Israeli negotiators arrive in Cairo for another attempt at securing a deal to free the hostages. Human Rights Watch accuses Hamas and 4 other Palestinian groups of war crimes and crimes against humanity on October 7th. And the US Central Command warns that ISIS is resurgent as the group claims its first ever attack in Oman. But first, a day after harrowing photographs of young female captives in Gaza were made public, a fresh attempt to secure their release. A team of Israeli negotiators have arrived in Cairo for the latest round of negotiations. Our Zach Anders has the latest.
We need the deal to happen now, and it is a very crucial and imminent moment. It can be signed. For 9 months, we didn't have such an opportunity, and now we do.
Well, Hamas and 4 other terrorist groups committed war crimes and crimes against humanity when they invaded Israeli communities on October 7th. That's the conclusion of Human Rights Watch, which has published an in-depth account of the Hamas atrocities of that day. Our Emmanuel Honora has this report.
If Israel were looking for more international support, it might have just gotten it. A new 236-page report titled "I Can't Erase All the Blood from My Mind" by Human Rights Watch details how Hamas and other Palestinian groups systematically committed hundreds of war crimes on the 7th of October. A welcome report for Israel, which has been pleading to the world to recognize the nature of the crimes committed that brutal day. Describing numerous accounts of war crimes and crimes against humanity, the report is one of the most in-depth international studies on the surprise Hamas assault.
Well, inside Gaza, a deepening sanitation crisis is compounding the misery of civilians who are trapped in the fighting between the IDF and Hamas. And the Hamas-led authorities are ignoring pleas to remove piled-up garbage, which is leading to the spread of disease. More in this report.
With bulldozers ploughing through growing piles of waste, the smell and filth have become unbearable for the residents of Gaza.
We can't sleep, we can't eat, we can't drink. The smell is killing us.
The piling up of waste has led to bad smells, spread of insects and rodents, and leakage of waste liquids into the underground water reservoir.
Since the war erupted in October, triggered by Hamas's brutal attack on Israel, Palestinians are growing angry as they also face a dire shortage of essentials like food, fuel, water, and medicine.
I am an adult woman. I have never had lice, but due to lack of soap, I have lice. Have you ever seen this? An adult woman brushes her hair and lice come out of it. Why? Due to the lack of necessary supplies. No one takes care of us.
Against Hamas, do you think that is having any impact at all on how the war's going?
The civilians in Gaza are absolutely suffering. Recall, of course, that Hamas takes control in practice of nearly all of the humanitarian aid that comes into the Strip and either uses it for its own needs or to maintain its power and its network of loyalists in the Gaza Strip. But although we're hearing voices of people who are critical and who are slight criticisms, we won't see any substantial rising up against Hamas until the barrier of fear of Hamas is lowered, is removed. And that's only going to happen when the IDF is able to neutralize a high enough number of Hamas's fighters, of its law enforcement mechanisms, because even if people are suffering, if they know they're going to speak up and then Hamas is going to end up in their living room the next day and shoot them, they're not going to speak up.
All right, let's turn our attentions to the north because Israel's battle with the Iranian-backed group Hezbollah continues. Our Robert Swift is up in the north of Israel for us now. Rob, we heard once again from Hassan Nasrallah, the head of Hezbollah today. Fresh threats against Israel, but did we hear anything new?
That's right. He repeated a lot of what he has said in the past. Usually his speeches are full of exaggeration and threats. There was a couple of points that came out from it which were interesting. Now, the first of these was the threat against Israel that Hezbollah will launch longer-range rocket attacks deeper into Israeli territory and against cities that have yet to be targeted if, in Nasrallah's words, Israel fails to cease its attacks on civilian targets. Now, this is likely in reference to a couple of incidents that took place in the last few days.
And as the attacks from South Lebanon increase, Israel is preparing for a worst-case scenario. That includes the Israel Electric Company, which issued dire warnings about what could happen in the event of a massive missile attack from Lebanon. Our Oria Keshet has this report.
With the chances of an all-out war on the northern border only increasing, the Israel Electric Company is preparing for the day when the missiles will fly over the power plants. The power plants are a strategic target and Israeli officials are fearful they could be damaged if the worst-case scenario comes to pass.
There's this phenomenon where the only thing officials do is frighten and panic the public. Against that, you have employees of the electric company who since October 7th are working to ensure that all these nightmare scenarios will not come to pass.
In a 5-day exercise, the electric company prepared for all scenarios, such as damage to a central power plant, deactivation of high voltage lines and repair work on infrastructure under fire.
Welcome back. China has defended its decision to invite Hamas political chief Ismail Haniyeh to Beijing for talks next week. Haniyeh will sit down with his opposite in the rival Fatah party. Beijing is looking to cement its position as a mediator in the region after it brokered a deal between Saudi Arabia and Iran last year. Take a listen.
China has always supported Palestinian factions in achieving reconciliation and unity through dialogue and consultation. China is willing to provide a platform and create opportunities for all factions to engage in reconciliation dialogues. China's efforts are in the same direction of those of other relevant parties. China is willing to enhance communication and coordination with all parties to work together towards the goal of Palestinian internal reconciliation.
So what is the likelihood that China can broker some kind of unity deal between Hamas and Fatah? Well, joining us now, Samer Sinijlawi is a Fatah activist and the chairman of the Jerusalem Development Fund. Good to see you as always, Samer. So why, first of all, does Fatah want to talk to Hamas at all?
Well, just, this kind of meetings give both Abbas and Haniyeh some more of legitimacy. They feel that still, some parts of the international community is giving them some attention, and they might, use it internally that they are doing some efforts into trying to do reconciliation.
Ashraf Redman is with me in the studio from the Abraham Accords Peace Institute and the Misgav Institute for National Security. So we heard from Samer there saying pretty much everything is the fault of the Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas, who won't even be going to these talks in China. But I think what's also interesting is the fact that it's China now seeking to broker these talks.
China is playing an increasingly important diplomatic, economic, transportation, even military role in the Middle East. And we have to remember there's no vacuum, right? So if the U.S. isn't there, if the West isn't there, China will be there. China is increasing its trade ties, its investments in ports, in overland infrastructure, and it very much wants to show the Arab world, Saudi Arabia, other countries, that it is supporting the Palestinians. And therefore, it is working both to hold these talks. It's also working to show the West that it can broker, for example, Saudi-Iranian diplomatic agreements.
Now, a former Syrian official with close ties to President Bashar al-Assad has been arrested in Los Angeles for allegedly lying on his citizenship application. 72-year-old Samir Osman al-Sheikh ran the notorious Adra prison in Syria, where political dissidents were tortured and murdered. To talk more about that, we're joined by Colonel Rich Alderson, Senior Fellow at the Atlantic Council and Geopolitical Consultant at Dragoman LLC. Good to see you, Rich. Thank you very much for being with us. This individual was about to board a flight to Beirut when he was arrested. What charges is he facing exactly?
Well, it's good to be with you, Laura. I think initially the charges are about lying and misrepresenting on documentation, applying for the right to stay. When he filed to stay in the United States, he had to sign a form that said he had never persecuted or oppressed people based on religion, national origin, or political views.